procurement is a function that sits on a specific part of the company that sees everything. Our interest is the best interest of the company always. We have no other agenda. And now it's either we decide to be that leader or we decide to give it to others. I think we are more and more negotiating basically with AI without noticing. When I talk to people, they draft their emails with one of the AI tools. And most probably the response you're getting is also drafted by an AI tool. Basically, we're all already kind of on the way there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Proc-N-Roll. Today, I am super excited. I've been waiting for this podcast for weeks and weeks. Last year, I met Shunit in Amsterdam. We had touched base a little bit in LinkedIn before that, but we had the opportunity to sit down in DPW and get to know each other a little bit. It was amazingly, I think, the day that the ceasefire was announced in Israel. And so it was a really cool conversation and a great celebration in terms of, hoping and finding a little bit of peace in the world, which is a huge priority for me. But I would really love to introduce everyone to Shunit. You know, we spend so much money across our functions, managing the money, negotiating, doing contracts, doing all these things. Yet at the same time, many of us feel like we're on an island, sometime an island inside our own company, sometime an island among procurement peers. I've talked to some people that have gone for decades without a lot of real insight and advice and feedback from others that are also on this same road together. One of the things I love so much about Shunit is she is, like me, an absolute believer in community. She's invested a ton of effort and time to build out the procurement community in Israel. And that really struck at my heart. As you know, Graphite is a community-based solution to supplier management. So on the side, one of my own projects is very similar to what Shunit is doing. In fact, on Tuesday next week, I'll be in the Bay Area doing a workshop with a bunch of procurement leaders in the same kind of idea of learning and growing and sharing. So I'm super excited to hear about this. We're going to talk a lot about community, about learning, about growing, and giving back as well. With that, Shunit, I'd love you to just kind of tell us a little bit about how you got into procurement in the first place. Everybody seems to have a unique story. Nobody seems to be born with a dream of being a procurement leader, but here we are. How did you find your way into procurement?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And I feel the same as you. I think we said that when we met. It's like we are kindred spirits.
100%.
A bit about me and how I got to procurement. It's like you said, nobody was kind of thinking that. I actually come from like an art background, the whole family. It was I'm like the black sheep of the family because everybody's doing like they either a painter or theater or something like that. And I'm in the high tech world, which is like baffling to some of my family, but there it is. I got to procurement just, supporting a business of my then husband, got into the world of IT and doing everything from sales to procurement for inventory and everything. So when it was time for me to go on my own way, I think what I love about it and really got me remaining within procurement is the part of the relationship. So negotiations from my perspective is the relationship with the vendor, with the stakeholders, and the whole kind of puzzle thing that you need to resolve on how do you get the best solution with the most interest and issues answered. That's what I really love about procurement and what keeps me going still. Is to get to this sweet spot where the vendor is happy, I am happy, my stakeholder is happy, I saved hopefully ton of money to the company, but mostly got to the smartest solution that really takes care of the most interest that could be.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because all of those things that we do, as you say, really does rely on relationships and we have these little micro networks and community that we work within to accomplish those things. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get distracted and focused on some aspect of the business or the outcome that isn't really focused on the people. So that's actually a really interesting insight. I talk to a lot of people that are, when I started, there was this idea of, win-win negotiations. At the time, and I'm not exactly sure how to feel about those things, because it's easy to lose win and like just focus on winning versus losing versus, as you're saying, I think maybe building that relationship and finding common ground and figuring out what matters most to the business that we're supporting and what matters most to the supplier, and all of that comes from conversations. So talk to me about this leadership community that you've built there in Israel. How did it start? How did you have the idea? And tell me about how it's grown. I would love for the procurement community in Israel to learn more about what you're doing, hopefully grow the community, and those that aren't taking advantage of it to jump in and do so.
Yeah, and even more exciting, we're working on a global community. So, but how did I start that? So, I come from like IT procurement, so tech world, and not so much the supply chain and direct procurement, but indirect. So I found that whenever I want to kind of learn something more, everything is about supply chain. Like this is the focus. When you talk about procurement, it's that. And when I go to learn about anything that is related to the IT world that I need to know, because from my perspective, I need to understand what I'm buying, right? So it's otherwise I don't know what I'm doing. I need to understand what it is. So it was either too techy or too supply chain to and I found myself that I have nowhere that matches what my needs and level is in terms of the knowledge that I need. So I said, well, okay. I had a role where I was cloud procurement, just establishing something that was very, very new. Cloud was then just at the beginning. I think it was 2017. And I became like the cloud procurement expert, and I had no one to talk to. And basically I was the one with the most knowledge because I went everywhere. So I started the community around that. Let me share what I know. And I really want to know what you already learned because it was so new. And this is how the idea kind of came about. Now the community is 4 years old. So it took me time to upskill. From 2017, I just started. And I think, and it was really started around the cloud procurement, but very fast growing into technology procurement and the space of high tech, which is a very bubbling scene in Israel. It's like the high tech world in Israel.
So it sounds like the origin of this is, I'm a category leader in a particular category. It's moving fast. I want to learn and share and build that. So almost like a small sourcing community is how you got started around the category, and then IT more generally.
Yeah, I started as IT because cloud procurement was not really a thing, but this kind of allowed me the access to the community that really speaks the same language. And from there, I mean, we have quarterly meetups. The community is around 260 people, which I think is cool. And at the meetups, we have, we just had one at the beginning of this week. We had more than 60 people attend, which I think is amazing. We share a lot of what we do. We talk about AI, obviously, because it's becoming like rapidly a thing for procurement to understand. I think the whole SaaS world is going to change into niche solutions because it's so easy to build for tech companies. It would be super interesting. Yeah. So we've talked about all of that and negotiation skills. How is it to negotiate with a bot?
Oh my gosh. I saw the funniest video the other day. I'll send it to you about. It was a prank call where someone went into a customer service call, and the service agent was actually a bot. And then the bot had an agent bot listening to and giving feedback to the bot. It was hilarious. I'll send it to you. But yeah, there's a whole new world coming our way. So as this community has grown, started around IT and that category, are marketing like marketing category and focused owners and other like facilities, other categories coming to the event as well? Or is it still pretty heavily IT focused?
It's very much IT and high-tech focused. So we touch with the facilities that are around the high-tech world mostly. So it's like we have those questions on, once we had a question like, anybody know a good hairdresser that could come one day to the office? Because some of the high-tech companies do have a local hairdresser once a week, or a nail artist and stuff like that. So from time to time, I get into those niche questions, but mostly we are focused on technology just rapidly changing. I mean, it's such a huge topic.
Oh, and it is changing fast. As we get into the podcast a little more, I want to talk to you about your insights on some of those things. So the community's built up. It's congratulations, by the way. It's as someone who's built community and tried to keep people together and keep the momentum. I mean, that is fantastic, particularly with the focus, like that sub-focus. What's your vision in terms of you talked about, a global community. Is your intention to still keep that focus on IT and technology? Do you have a vision of growing the community in kind of different directions, different categories? Our meeting next week in the Bay Area is with Center of Excellence leaders and CPOs about, how that office should be thinking, building strategy and transformation, things like that. So there's so much that you can talk about. I love that you've kept your community very focused, because I think that it's very relevant for those folks. But at the same time, I'm wondering about other folks in Israel and elsewhere that are, by the way, IT category is super close to my heart. I started as the IT hardware software buyer like in 1994 for Intel at one of their offices. So I love that category, and there's so much to talk about. It never gets old. What about, where do you see this going? How do you envision it evolving?
I think global community starts with the technology community as well. I think it's if you think about it, then all the other categories are basically now going slowly into the tech. If you talk about, let's say, HR, we have very interesting AI tools coming into the HR world, which is basically managed by the IT procurement. So I think everything is now going into that category, and it's now fastly growing into being the indirect procurement. So if you look at indirect at tech companies, 80% would be IT procurement. So we are basically almost synonymous with indirect procurement at tech companies. We are. So I think as a global community, I'm seeing it starting off the tech community, then going into indirect, but not further than that, because honestly, I feel that supply chain is a whole different world that I feel better leaving to the experts on this. It's just so different.
Yeah, there's no question. Sort of the direct and indirect world is absolutely different. I love that. I love what that does. I love that you're bringing the community together, that it's growing, and you're looking more broadly. I look forward to one of these days when I can hop over there and attend one of your events. Israel's not exactly just a short flight for me, but still, I think it would be awesome to be there. As you're thinking globally, how are you thinking about building community? Where right now, I think, maybe describe your event last week. I think it's sort of an in-person event at one of your members' offices or something. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah. So each time one of the members hosts us in their offices, we have a breakfast, an hour of a breakfast. So it's basically time for us to kind of mingle and talk to each other, get to know each other. Then we had some content around really, actually, we had one of our members in New York that came to Israel, talk a bit about first of all was the SaaS moving to the AI world, and then US health benefits, which is for us, we are mostly working with global companies. As global companies, we sometimes are unaware to the difference between the US and Europe. It's very different in terms of employees, benefits, and other things. So just bridging the gap a bit about that. And then really had a very interesting workshop around AI in negotiations. It's super interesting. I think we are more and more negotiating basically with AI without noticing, because when I talk to people, they draft their emails with using one of the AI tools. And most probably the response you're getting is also drafted by an AI tool like a GPT or Gemini or Copilot of a sort. So basically we're all already kind of on the way there. And like you said, I think that some of the engagements are already happening with bots and we are now aware of it. So it's very interesting to understand where it's going. One of the salespersons that I work with kind of told me this week he was concerned. So what's your plans for the future? Is because AI is going to replace you all. I was saying, well, as long as there is a human salesperson, there will be a human procurement person.
So yeah, look in the mirror, right? It isn't like procurement's the only group being impacted by AI. Yeah. As you go globally now, I assume that this now has to layer in with some technology, so that you can, unless the idea is to create sort of communities, global communities that kind of meet just by themselves versus interact with each other. My guess is you're thinking about sort of like a Slack community or some sort of online community where people are sharing ideas and interacting together globally that way.
Yeah. So definitely we'll do a lot more virtual webinars and other meetups virtually. And in Israel, we work a lot with WhatsApp. We're still kind of considering WhatsApp and Slack because in the US, the WhatsApp is not as big as it is in Europe and Israel. So Slack and WhatsApp. Which is also in Israel, the basic, we have activity every day. Every day people ask questions. Did you hear about this vendor? Who are you using for this? So I think this is the real value, like everyday value. And then, I do want to get into the place where we are having local communities that have like once a year, meetup or twice, one in Europe and one in the US maybe. Well, it will take a while, I'm sure. But I think that's my vision.
Yeah. Well, maybe we need to join forces a little bit in some of the community work that we're doing. I'm sure there's overlap and ways that we can sort of help build each other's communities. You're reminding me of a good friend of mine, Michael Kaju. He was the founder of the Procurement Foundry, and I think it's gone through a few iterations over the last year or year and a half for various reasons. But he built a very successful global community with sort of online Slack. He's worth talking to, and those of you that are out there that have participated in the Procurement Foundry know what I'm talking about. It is so effective to be able to do what Shunit's talking about, which is engage with somebody else that's in the role that you're in, working on the kind of project that you're working on, get some real-time feedback. Because so often what we're doing, we're working with a vendor on a negotiation maybe once every year or 2 or 3 years. Sometimes we get tossed into a negotiation that is so like mobile phones or, some service that we just have never ourselves worked with, and somebody else has years of experience. So it really does make all the difference. That reminds me of the episode we did a couple of weeks ago where we were sort of trying to understand what was coming, forecasting what was the priorities were going to be coming this year. And one of those topics was sort of the gig worker. And if you think about what the gig worker would mean in procurement, a lot of times that would mean you're bringing in a consultant to help you with a particular problem. But what you're describing is almost sort of like native gig sharing, where, you have expertise that are shared across many companies. We're not necessarily paying in money in order to get that service, but we're paying in community participation. Sometimes I get from you, and sometimes I give to you and others. A lot of times I'll never give back to you, but I'll give to somebody else. And we just kind of keep paying it forward and paying it around in terms of, sharing and helping each other in the process. It's really...
I think people are really, really generous. People are really generous with their time, with the sharing the knowledge. And a lot of the things I don't see, even because they're offline, right? They're having an offline conversation. I don't see that. But I kind of talk to everybody from time to time, and I just hear, that guy helped me out. This woman helped me out. And it's amazing. I think it's amazing. People are so generous. And I do see, by the way, the gig kind of thing going on more so than I've seen in the past. So I've seen some of the procurement executives and experts going into that phase of doing that. I also see some companies that are unsure of how the future is going to look like with AI in terms of the size of the teams. You talked about it in this episode as well. And I see it in real life that they want like something as that temporary solution or like a professional services procurement to bridge them to the place where AI takes more and more of the work and they don't need to actually hire another person.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely in the era of uncertainty. And that uncertainty, I think, lends itself to more community, frankly. I mean, the need to learn and grow and help each other is, I think, accelerating faster than it ever was before. So I'm sure there's people listening right now that are like, hey, that's pretty cool, but I'm not in Israel and I'm not going to be in the Bay Area with Conrad next week. I love this idea of community. What advice would you give to a leader or somebody sort of middle of their career or even beginning their career that this really resonates with and they feel this calling? Like, I'm sure you felt it as well, because otherwise you wouldn't have invested so much, but this calling to build and contribute to a community like you have. What would be your advice to them to get started?
I think it's just, if you're naturally willing to be in a way vulnerable and ask questions and not be willing to be not the smartest person in the room, but learn from others and then get to understand what you're really good at. I mean, I think that each of us have the unique experience that we have. So I had this opportunity to be very early on in cloud, and others that are right now have the opportunity to be an earlier adopters of AI. And I mean, I work for a company that is high adopter of an AI, or basically that's the part of the product that is very substantial. So I think you understand where you can share from your experience that is unique to you, and then be open to ask for help. And it doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. I think especially in procurement, we feel sometimes that we need to be very, know-it-all, especially with like when we come to the vendor, when we come to the stakeholders, we need to understand what we are talking about. And sometimes we're clueless, especially in the tech space. I mean, we can't possibly know each and every software or tool or anything that platform that is out there. We can't possibly know. But imagine how smart you are, or how know-it-all you look when you had the opportunity to consult with other procurement people, right, that are peers in your role, and came back to the business and said, hey, I heard this company is using this solution. Did we check it out? How about we check it out? And, I actually find that I'm able to bring much more value to the business by asking just this simple question. Did we check that out? How about we try this solution? And I think you were talking about what you're doing in the Bay Area, and I think this is just that. I mean, procurement is a function that sits on a specific part of the company that sees everything. We see everything cross-company. Our interest is the best interest of the company always. We have no other agenda. And our ability to bring leadership and change and all sorts of kind of processes, new processes around the company is huge. And now it's either we decide to be that leader or we decide to give it to others. That's it.
I absolutely love what you just said. That is the mic drop moment for the whole podcast, folks. Like, decide to be a leader and step up. Either step up or step out of the way and let somebody else lead, because you are at a pivotal moment. And we as procurement leaders are at pivotal moments in our organizations where leadership is needed. So much is changing so fast. I mean, we're coming off the tail end of risk and due diligence layering into procurement, right? On the indirect side, 15 years ago, the idea that we were kind of the risk leaders for the organizations on the supplier side, like that was kind of unheard of. And for me personally, I didn't even want it, right? It was this big hot potato that I didn't want. Absolutely. Step up, be that leader. Now, the other thing I'll say though, and I'm talking, you talk about vulnerability. Let me be vulnerable a little bit here. I grew up and I started my career very intimidated by people around me. I would describe myself as an introvert. And I think across procurement, there's a lot of introverts. You know, you came from an artist family, so you may be more extroverted than the rest of us. I don't know. But like even now, if you put me in a cocktail party and ask me to meet people, I don't drink alcohol. Maybe drinking a little bit would help me meet people, but I just kind of want to go into a dark corner or go back to my hotel room. It's hard for me. So I know we're talking to people today who it's hard for them as well. It's really easy to come to work, do your job, don't talk to strangers, don't meet other people. But if you do that, you're missing this entire opportunity that we're talking about today. You know, participate in the community, learn and grow and share with others. And that starts by being okay to say, hi, I'm Conrad. Who are you? And almost guaranteed the person on the other end of that conversation is going to be so happy that you did that, because they're also sort of feeling a little stuck inside their own shell and unsure how to, it's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for you. It's hard for others to make that breakthrough. But like you and I are, like you said, we're kindred spirits now after a few minutes together in Amsterdam. We've had a few calls since then. And I know that if I needed something, I could give you a ring. You could give me ideas. You could help extend your network and vice versa. It's super powerful to build this into, how we operate on a day-to-day basis. So, but the logistics, I want to get into the logistics now. So I just
want to expand on what you said just a moment. It's just that also within the companies, I heard someone in procurement, I don't remember, said, I don't need to go and introduce myself and be socialized, social within the company. When they need me, procurement is a position that they must come to us. So
that's crazy.
I don't need
this crazy talk, right?
I don't need to go to them. And I so disagree. The best processes that I've led that make the most difference, most of them started with a water cooler conversation that I overheard. I overheard somebody says something that did not make sense to me. And I was thinking, I want to check this out. I want to check the engagement with the vendor because it doesn't make sense to me. And everything opened up from that point. It was, so if you're not bringing yourself out there also within your company, you're missing this leadership opportunity.
Yeah. And big value, right? I mean, I've been in this business for 30 years and I haven't seen any exception to the principle that early involvement delivers more value. And so if they're forced to come to you, guaranteed they're not coming to you in that earliest moment. If you don't have that relationship and they're coming only because they have to, they're coming probably with a bad attitude because you're going to slow them down and all these other things, 100%. And we just came off, I don't know that they've dropped yet, Shunit. They will very shortly, about stakeholder management episodes. This is really key, right? Stakeholder management sometimes can feel like mechanistic, but it isn't. It's people, it's relationships. You get out there, you get to know people, you understand what their fears and concerns and goals and objectives. Like, this is the same as building relationships outside of work. And then we figure out how we can work together in order to create something better than we would if we weren't together. You kind of started the episode highlighting that, like, all these aspects of what we're doing, they work better in a relationship instead of just a task. I think a lot about the continuum of task. Like, on one side, if you think, okay, I have task here and I have relationship on the other side, and I think personalities kind of fit on that continuum as well as a couple of other ones, but it's easy to look in the mirror and go, am I task focused or am I relationship focused? And if you find that you're task focused, it's going to take energy and effort to kind of move yourself away from the task and move over to the relationship. If you're too heavily focused on the relationship, sometimes you lose focus on the task, right? But most of us need to get to that middle space and get closer to the relationship. Bring the relationship in to strengthen the task, and the combination of those two will absolutely build better results.
I also think that this could be balanced out within the team. So that's the way I build a team. So I look at the team every time as one unit, and then I'm very strong in relationship. I'll need a team member who is very strong on tasks to balance me off, because when we work as a team, and then I've added analytic skills in another level. So I'm looking always as the team. I don't look at every person's need to be the 360, let's say, and do their best to be balanced, because none of us is really balanced. Each of us has their strong suit. Then as a team, we want to be complementary with this, with the skills, with the way that we are, with our strong suits.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, individually, we're never going to be able to close all those gaps, right? And be powerhouse. But if we bring powerhouse people around us, it really makes a difference. So I want to back up a little bit to a question I asked before. And when I asked it, I was thinking a little bit more tactically in terms of how you approach it. So let's say that I am, my first name's James. So I'm just going to use James Smith, right? So I'm James Smith. I'm in, I'm in Chicago. I'm new to procurement, or, I've just kind of been working in my own task bubble for a while. How did you start the snowball rolling or the avalanche going, or whatever the metaphor is, to go, okay, I'm just going to call this one person, and then that one person turns into 5 people. And then how do you actually get started to get the community together?
I think the way I started is actually going into events that are already there. It doesn't need to be like DPW, that is a huge paid event. It could be any event in your category, actually. So in the IT space, it would be cloud or whatever. I go into those events where I meet more people, even if they're not procurement. Then I start talking to them to know what they're doing. Then I can get introduced, and that's the way I got to know some of them. And I think being a subject matter expert is really brought me into being a speaker on a lot of those kind of events. So people kind of sought me out. But if you're just starting out, just go to the events, meet people. Don't be that one, oh, that's my 9 to 5 and that's it. I mean, it's just, or those people that say that they can't afford losing a day of work or half a day of work to go to an event. I think that just comes from a misconception of how much you get into it from meeting peers, from hearing something new about your category. It's amazing how you can develop yourself and get so much new ideas by that and really improve. And I think, to your point, the first thing would be some kind of commitment to your improvement and the learning and developing, and then going to the events, no matter how busy is your schedule. This is like a huge part of growth.
Yeah. Last week, I was in Southern California, and I sent a text message or an email to a woman who was the head of procurement at Intuit, and now she's moved on to another role. I won't drop her name here, but it was the most amazing morning coffee I have had in a long time. Of course, I'm in a business, and I'm always kind of one of my personal agendas is to grow the business and such. But I find that these relationships become more important to me than the business. It was such a very cool conversation that we had that changed how I think about several things personally. I mean, she was just coming in from surfing, and she learned how to surf after she was 50. I'm over 50, and I've kind of given up of trying. And so it just was so cool just to get together and have coffee with somebody else. And so practical tip for any of you out there that want to get the ball rolling is, what you measure improves. Like, just decide every month I'm going to have an interaction with somebody outside of my company so that I can start sharing and learning and growing and just having a relationship. When I started as the head of procurement at Adobe, there was a group in the Bay Area called the Bay Area Procurement Council. And that, I started to go to those meetings, and frankly, sometimes they were a little bit boring. Sometimes they were super engaging. I mean, it came and went. But as you said earlier, the engagement outside of the meeting became what was most valuable to me. I built like 3 or 4 relationships with individuals that became really good friendships, where we would get on the phone and talk about very, very detailed challenges that we're having in a negotiation with our organization, with our leadership. any of those kinds of things, right? But that comes from building a relationship of trust and knowing these people. And that can start with something as simple as a coffee chat. This podcast itself, I asked Zach, he and I were working on a project. We kind of knew each other, but I asked him to lunch when I was in London at an event. We went to lunch. We spent probably 2 hours talking about the war in Israel. This was a couple of years ago. And it was such a meaningful personal conversation. I mean, as a boy, I think I might have told you this, but I spent 2 years living in Kuwait. So the region there is really close to my heart. We had an amazing conversation. We struck off a friendship, and boom, what came out of that is, this ongoing podcast. We've met so many people. That one coffee, that one lunch, that one extra mile effort to talk to somebody can make all the difference personally, professionally, in so many ways. Just get outside the bubble, invest and make the effort, get to know somebody else.
I absolutely agree. Also, people sometimes, they call me to brainstorm around something that I don't think is troubling me, is something that, okay, sure, you want my advice, or just brainstorming around that. And I find that, it's always contributing to me as well, because it's questions that I didn't think of asking, or just things that I do intuitively. It's not really intuitively, it's from my experience, but I haven't put them in any methodical kind of thinking. And then when you put it in the methodical kind of thinking, you say, hey, that's actually something that I can improve, or I want to do more of. So it's always a benefit. And I actually do what you say. I mean, a part of the meetups that I have, I always try to, at least like once a month, have coffee with one person from the community, or somebody that I haven't seen for a long, long time from previous company that I worked with. So really just keeping it very, hearing what else is there rather than only within my company, because you get kind of closed in the bubble, like you said.
Yeah, 100%. I've had a habit of trying to exercise almost every day. Sometimes through my career, that's been over lunch. Sometimes it's been in the mornings. But there's always been this pang of a little bit of guilt. Like, am I taking away from work time, getting out and doing my exercise? And after 30 years now, if you don't do this, folks, if you're not investing in your physical body like that on a regular basis, multiple times per week, you're missing a huge opportunity. I have found that my very best thinking, my very best ideas, my very best problem solving is happening when I'm running down the road. Like, work doesn't really stop. And when I think one of the things people are thinking is like, oh, but you're leaving work and you're having lunch or coffee with somebody else over there. Like, that's not even your job. But my guess is that you could give me 20 stories of how that conversation actually advanced you in to deliver more value for your company, more success. Like, this is a real investment in you as a person that drives better results for your business. And it's absolutely worth the investment.
Yeah, totally
Okay,
agree.
I've got some rapid fire questions for you. We're coming down the home stretch of the podcast here. And I think these are really interesting. I'll fire them off. Take as little or as much time as you want to answer them, but we'll try and pop through them. I have about 10 here. Maybe we'll get through 3 or 4. I don't know. Okay, this is a really fun one. So, what's better for the CPO? A better ERP, or a better team of a better group of teammates?
Oh, teammates, 100%.
Yeah. I buy into that as well. So, question number 2, in one word, I don't know that it's really fair to say one word, but what's the biggest barrier to AI adoption in the procurement community today?
It's the imagination, basically. I think we need to loosen our mind to imagine what we can do with AI. So our thinking is still very limited into administrative type of tasks. And it's our thinking limits us more than AI capabilities. That's what I found.
Yeah, 100%. We're kind of lucky because we're in a small business. We can play around with technology that sometimes bigger business policies stop. But we've been playing ferociously with OpenClaw and my mind is blown. Like, I think last year's whole conversation about agentic AI, like that is so 2025. Like 2026 is an entirely new conversation about, about agents and how they're going to change procurement. We're actually going to have a podcast in a couple of weeks here, where we're going to do a bit of a show and tell and dive into OpenClaw and the application of OpenClaw. It's going to be awesome, folks. Make sure you don't miss that one. So, what is the one buzzword? So from last year, the thing that everyone was talking about that you just want to stop talking about in the year ahead? Is there anything that just stop talking about that already?
Who?
Hard one.
Hard one. Well, I think AI is still a buzzword, and we can't stop talking about it yet. We are not even, it's like, but I think what we'll see in those, though, I think the new buzzword for us would be like procurement, tech procurement specifically, would be AI FinOps. Cost optimization. AI cost optimization is going to be huge, huge, huge. And we're not talking about this enough. So we're talking about AI in terms of what are the capabilities and how is the world going to look. But for us, procurement, optimization of AI costs is going to be huge.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, it may pull us down these paths. I guess we won't be running a lot of our own energy or our own AI in our own data centers for the most part, right? But the cost of energy to just run all of this stuff in the background directly or probably indirectly is going to be a big part of what we're looking at. So, okay, diving into negotiations, the most underrated, and by the way, I know, knowing a little bit about the region and the culture, negotiations, I would say, you're probably a superpower negotiator. So listen in on this one, folks. The most underrated soft skill in negotiation, is it silence or is it empathy?
Underrated. Wow. Underrated. I would say empathy.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
I feel that, yeah, silence is very strong, but I feel that from time to time, I encounter people that feel, even more than time to time, that empathy is showing weakness. Is like, that you need to be strong and, I have my agenda. I think empathy is the strongest kind of soft skill that you could have. And in negotiation, definitely. It just kind of, it's, from behavioral science and all this, it just, when you acknowledge a person on their efforts that they're making, and you really see them and what the other side of the table needs to, what is in front of them? What are their challenges? Because we look at us and we say, we want to get this, and this. And basically we see the other side as a blocker to achieve what we need to achieve. But if for a moment we can empathize with them and really understand how difficult it is for them to get what you're asking approved. If you get out of the point of view that they want to provide you what you want, they really want to say yes, but they have all sorts of limitation within their companies. And you acknowledge that and you say it out loud. I appreciate your effort, or I understand completely that you have your own kind of policies, or that from the point of view of the CRO, you must see growth. I understand that. And now let's work together. Now you can work together because it's just this little moment of empathy. You are two people working against the problem, let's say, or the conflict, rather than me versus you. It's you and me versus the issue that we have. And this is the strength and power of empathy.
I absolutely love that. So, the barrier melts when somebody feels heard, right?
Absolutely.
This is, again, we're right back to where we started with what you said, like the relationship, building the relationship really matters. Even in a moment that feels like we're on opposite sides, that relationship may be the bridge that solves a difficult problem with an existing vendor or allows the opening of some thinking that will completely change the deal that you're putting forward at a design level, at a cost level, at an availability level. All of these things really can change. So if you today, and I'm sure that I'm going to follow this up a little. Okay, I've decided to pivot on the question a little bit. Because I'm assuming that you're using AI in your work already. Where have you found it, like today, in a practical way to be most helpful to your work?
Definitely reviewing contracts. Hands down, that's the most. I save so much money on this one. I just kind of ask the question, right? What's the terms here? That's the easiest. And we do also all sorts of automations that help us in being more efficient. But definitely, I see the whole legal side of it. I mean, our legal team is using AI a lot, and I'm using it a lot. I have all sorts of templates of GPTs and Gemini gems that support the agreement side of it and negotiation part of it in terms of what am I negotiated, and preparing benchmarks, by the way. Benchmarks, yeah, absolutely. Competitive, what's the market like? Are there a leader, not a leader? Who's the competition? How's the pricing?
Yeah, I love that, and I found the same thing. I find redlining is so tedious manually, but when you bring in like an agent to help you through that redlining process, the result of it is so much better. But even the process that you go through is not nearly as brain damaging as like word by word by word. And I still don't think we can totally not read the contract when we're done, but just really tying it all together makes a big difference. So if the original question, this is the follow-on I wanted to get to. So what is the thing that you wish you could automate with AI, and you're really looking forward to that happening in the next, few months or this year sometime?
So one of the things that there are two things that I'm working on currently with our provider of the P2P system. One is the ability to actually ask any question, like you ask GPT, ask any question, the system with the data. So our system have all the data of the POs, the PRs, the invoices, the contracts. Just ask free text question, any question that I want. That saves a lot of time and money, definitely. And then I think the other one is system hygiene. So you have to have an accurate data, and I worked a lot about that. We could talk for hours just about all the ways that I've automated this. But to have the automation that actually sees where things are missing or mismatching and fixing it automatically, or at least flagging it. Hey, which one did you mean? What's the right one? So you're keeping your data clean effortlessly. I think that's what I'm working on for this year.
Yeah, data hygiene is a big deal. By the way, this OpenClaw stuff, it will blow your mind. If you haven't played around with it in this space, unbelievable. I've uploaded the most complex like documents, spreadsheets, data with like code layers and all sorts of things built into it that really does take 3 to 6 months for a human to understand and manage effectively. And our agent understands it in less than a minute. Okay, got it. What do you want me to do now? Like, the ability of these new agents to do what you're describing, I don't want to say child's play, because there are some challenge and limitations to get it set up safely, but wow, very cool. All right. So, what would you say to yourself? So this is kind of the wrap up leadership question. You've been doing this for a while now. You've had some tremendous insights. You've shared those with us today. If you're talking to, a new leader or a new to procurement, or just a person generally, talking to yourself as a new to the workforce, walking away from the art studio of your family, what is that leadership lesson, the big gem that you wish you had understood before, that is just the breakthrough for you?
Wow. Do something that is stretching you at least once a week, that is outside your comfort zone. Just, stepping outside your comfort zone. So it could be, like you said, talking to somebody that you don't know. And then it could be using, the OpenClaw. It could be, just at least once a week, do something that feels a bit uncomfortable, even just a bit. It doesn't need to be in terms of, jumping of a plane with a parachute. Really just tiny steps even, but taking those steps that you feel a bit squeamish and see how it goes. So just daring to speak to person that you feel uncomfortable talking to and sharing your ideas. So just listen. So that, I would say that.
I absolutely love it. I love it. And that some aspect of that brought us together. I'm so thankful for our friendship. The insights that you've shared today have been, out of this world. I would just really say, back to the mic drop moment, step up, be that leader, dare to do the hard things. One of our very good friends in the business, one of his favorite quotes that has really stuck with me is, if your goals don't scare you, they aren't big enough. And I absolutely think that's true. Shunit, this has been a massive pleasure for me, real highlight for my week. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time. You're on one side of the world, I'm on the other, but it's like we're sitting back together in Amsterdam having coffee again, and can't wait to get over, attend one of your events, or catch up with you at one of these other ones. Best of luck with the growth of the community. Let's get together separately and figure out how we can help each other in that regard. I love what you're doing. And we'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody.